Hello and welcome to Conversations with the Voice of Reason. I'm your host, Benjamin Boyce, and today's conversant is Dominic Lauren, who is a female to male to female detransitioner. She speaks about her story growing up, her physical condition, kind of being intersex in a certain way, and her mental condition and the different processes that she went through to fixate upon a transgender identity, and then the dead end that she found down that particular road for herself, and how she turned back around, and now what she's concentrating on and concerned with in public discourse and in life in general. Wonderful individual, very proud to promote her and her story. So without further ado, here is Dominic Lauren. How would you like to structure our conversation? What would you like to open with or focus on or work toward?
I want to just really share my story, my experience with transitioning and then having to, detransition, and then how I kind of made peace with my transition, and also how I found a different approach to the feelings that I was labeling as gender dysphoria, but I was able to find more of the root causes of what actually was producing these feelings within myself. I guess about that, I just want to share my experience for people who feel that they want to either identify as trans or stop taking hormones, or no longer feel that they want to identify as trans, because I think right now there's so much spotlight on the community that it's caused a lot of separation.
So, gender dysphoria.
Mm-hmm.
You said there was a bunch of feelings that, did you kind of put them in the container of gender dysphoria at some point?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, as I was growing up, I had all of these feelings of, I wish that I was a boy, but not that, I think I am a boy. It was just, I wish that I was a boy because I prefer to have my hair shorter, for example. I prefer to wear clothes from the boys section, because I'm using also the vernacular of a 7-year-old. I wasn't exposed to any of this ideology as a child, so at that age, it was just, I was told that I was a tomboy. I didn't have an issue with being seen as female. I just had an issue that I couldn't do certain things because I was female. And then I think as I got, not I think, I know, as I got older, I turned that into, I also feel that I'm attracted to girls and boys. I'm confused with this. I feel really isolated because I was the only one at that time who was out. I was in middle school, but around that time it was 2007, 8, 9, so it wasn't as common for kids that age to be coming out as LGBT, at least from my experience at where I grew up. So I just felt isolated, and I was bullied because of that. So then I transferred schools because one of my parents had been accepted to work at a private school. So I moved from a public school to a private school, and it was also an all-girls Catholic boarding school. So there, I really started to not like being female. And I think it was a combination of being told that I couldn't do a bunch of things because I was female, couldn't dress a certain way because I was female, and then also was having people not allow me to express myself too, tell me that I was weird because there's this religious influence. And then also I did not have a supportive family life. Eventually when I turned 18 and sought out medical transition, my parents had asked me to move out and no longer wanted to financially support me. So there was a time period where I was financially independent, trying to pay for school and transition. And so it just caused a lot of drama in my family. So then because of that, I had a lot of mental illness, which turned into me having to go into a lot of rehab and in and out of psych wards. And then so through therapy and through digging deep into my past, I was able to reconcile with all of that and really pinpoint where the root cause of my dysphoria was. Dysphoria, whatever you want to call it. I don't really know what to call it anymore. And I was able to really kind of let go of this attachment to, I need to be seen as a man. I need to be addressed with he, him, his pronouns. I just kind of let go of everything and left social media for 2 years because it was really hard to see all of my friends who I had met online be so happy and celebratory for their hormones when I knew that I was going to have to come off of it because it was giving me also psychological side effects. And so in doing that in combination with therapy and just a lot of inner work, I was able to really understand what led me to identify as trans and also why I no longer grasp onto that label so tightly as I used to. I don't really put energy towards caring how people address me. I just ask for people's respect because I know that I now am just very androgynous and I don't really want to change anything. I just feel comfortable as how I appear, and I'm not trying to identify as non-binary or anything else because it just doesn't feel important to me anymore.
Mm-hmm. So in the Catholic girls' school, well, before that, this is kind of a personal question, but I am curious about in what way you were attracted to men and women, or to males and females when you were that age. So I guess 12, 13, was it a romantic attraction? Did you play a lot of fantasies out, hooking up with people or being together, being close? Like what was the...
Yeah, it was kind of, I mean, it started out with me having boyfriends, the typical middle school boyfriend. You hold hands and have your first kiss, and everyone's so awkward about it. But it's really not a big deal, but it's a big deal at that time. So I started out with that, but what really I think influenced my perception of my sexuality at that time was porn, because I was exposed really young to the word transgender, and then also seeing people who had transitioned and taken hormones. And when I found out that could happen, I then said, oh, because of my childhood and wanting to be a boy and not feeling that I fit in and having all of these male typical gender roles that I took on, this makes sense. This is why I'm unhappy. This is why I don't fit in. This is, I just kind of saw it as, this is the answer. And all of these people are telling me that they're happier because of their transition, all the medical decisions that they had made for themselves. I want that. It was just coming from a place of, I want to feel better about myself. I want to feel happier because I didn't love myself at that time. I don't think I knew how, because I just felt so disgusting in my body for so long.
Was it the idea of being trans or the idea of being a man or a trans man? And what was that idea that you wanted to pursue beyond what you described of being released from unhappiness into happiness? But what was the object that you began to pursue, like this new self as a man?
Yeah, so I mean, when I was 7, I asked my mom what she would have named me if I was born male, and she said Dominic. And so at 7, I started to go by Dominic. So, and really, people didn't really take it seriously. It was just between me and my friends. But as I grew older, I then said, like, oh, that's what this is. So when I chose the name Dominic, it like had a history to it already, so it just felt right. And then as I grew older in puberty, I noticed that my body was developing secondary sex characteristics that were male. So I had a full mustache, and my voice was a little bit deeper. I had a larger like muscle build, and I had a happy trail. And this is personal, but I always share it. My clitoris was a little bit bigger than other people's. So I think also because through porn, I saw like people didn't have a similar vagina to me. I just felt like, oh, even my body is telling me I should be male. And then eventually when I went to get hormones, they did a blood test on me. And then also I thought this was normal, like routine for when people started, but apparently it's not. They measured the length of my like clitoris, like they made me strip down. Yeah.
Wait, after the blood test?
After the blood test, yeah. Because
I wonder, did you have
they
a
were just
high testosterone?
yeah.
Yeah.
It was
okay.
higher than the female range. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then the doctors thought that I was taking like hormones like that I bought offline. They asked me that affect your period, so you can either take estrogens or take testosterone. So they kind of made me believe that I needed to be taking some sort of synthetic hormone because of this imbalance. So that's when I decided, okay, I'll do testosterone. But my parents didn't want me to do it. And so this conversation was when I was 17 years old. So I knew that I was going to turn 18, obviously, in, I believe it was like a 6-month period. So I went to college for a semester, and then went back home to start once I turned 18. And that's when they also told me that they believed it would be better if I was on a hormone blocker to, this is how they phrased it to me, to put my ovaries to sleep to allow the hormones to work better in my body. Or
the synthetic hormones to work better.
The testosterone, yeah.
Okay.
So at first, I was seeing one doctor at this hospital, and he said, I don't always recommend a hormone blocker for my patients. You can choose whether or not you want it. So I had initially chosen not to have it. Then I had a different doctor who was actually a nurse practitioner, and she told me that she wants all of her patients to be on a hormone blocker until they have either their ovaries or testes removed. So she convinced me to go on a hormone blocker. So I was on a hormone blocker for some time, and also during that time as well, prior to the hormone blocker, the pharmacy that I had gotten my first vial of testosterone from actually sold me a vial of estrogen and testosterone combined, and they recalled it. So that, yeah. And then, yeah, so I had been injecting with that bottle for 4 months. So my estrogen levels were like dangerously high, and so were my testosterone levels. So I don't know if that caused other issues, but that was like my first vial of any HRT was that contaminated vial.
And you were on the hormone blockers at the same time?
No, I started the hormone blocker after that. So like my hormones were already unstable, and then they put a hormone blocker in, which then suppressed my follicle and luteinizing, follicle stimulating luteinizing hormones or something. And so then I was just on the synthetic testosterone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did they test you for some form of an intersex condition?
So they told me that I had polycystic ovarian syndrome, and that because of that I had hypoandrogenism. So polycystic ovarian syndrome technically isn't considered an intersex trait, but hypoandrogenism is. So I used to say, like, yeah, I'm also intersex, because I did have another doctor who I talked to when I was trying to figure all of this stuff out, mention, like, yeah, I think you're intersex. But again, it's like with the trans thing, I don't really try to latch on to that label as much anymore, because I never had any surgeries or anything.
It's just, it seems like there's all these compiling issues going on. Like there's a base state in your body where your body is hypoandrogenic or hypo.
Yeah, I don't. It's hypo. I hope I'm saying it correctly, because sometimes I say it wrong. But yeah, hypoandrogenism. So yeah, I just have more androgens in my body than I'm supposed to have.
Yeah, and that would cause hair growth, probably. Precocious sexuality.
Probably.
Probably some emotional effects too.
Yes. Well, yeah, because it's technically a hormone imbalance. So, I mean, I can pinpoint when I started to feel really depressed and anxious and had suicidal ideations was about the time when I started puberty. So I do think it was playing into also this kind of distorted perception of self as well.
Yeah, I guess there's one, unintended consequence of the LGBTI, etc. movement as a political movement is that the labels that are being used get all this secondary meaning to it. So something such as intersex, which is a medical condition, now has this social component or is an identity itself, which confuses just being able to deal with it as something that's rooted in the physical body, because now there's all this cultural stuff going on. So whether or not you identify with it or not, there's this underlying issue that's feeding into your personality and your body and probably prompting you. I mean, I'm just, guessing or riffing, probably prompting you to feel more like a boy and looking around you at males and females and saying, well, actually, I'm more like a male than a female. And then the cultural expectations, especially in the Catholic girls' school, come on, which kind of like compress that and like make you even more frustrated with the container that you don't already feel like you fit into.
Yeah, and also at high school, it was so small. My class only had 30 girls in it, and one of my parents worked on the campus, and we did not have a good relationship because they were absolutely not supportive of me going by Dominic, using he, him, his pronouns, wearing boys' clothes, cutting my hair. It was a constant back and forth battle. So I think that also put this kind of constraint on it too, because online I was being told, oh, your parents won't get it, it's fine, we support you, we'll be your friends, life gets better after high school, was what I would tell myself. And so once my parents did theoretically abandon me because of just saying, yeah, I mean, you made these decisions, but we want no part of it, leave, I really felt that I had kind of been told, oh, this can happen. So it was almost fulfilling my own prophecy in a way of, oh, look, they don't understand me. This is a new thing that people are coming around to accepting. I need to speak about this because I don't want other people to go through what I had to go through. So I started to do a lot of activism too, just kind of promoting acceptance for the trans community. And, you know, I don't regret any of it, but I just don't want to promote the medicalization as much anymore, because I don't think there is adequate studies to support this happening, because of what I experienced and what other detransitioners have experienced as well. It's just, it was scary to me that when I was having these side effects, the doctors who were prescribing me the hormones didn't do anything about it, and I had to go see other doctors. And then once I
What do you mean
stopped,
they
they
didn't
just
do anything about it? Like they didn't
they told me
accept your
my
feedback or do
symptoms.
follow-ups up?
Yeah,
Follow-ups?
pretty much. They told me that my symptoms weren't correlated to either the testosterone or the hormone blocker, because. But to me, I'm like, how could it not be? Especially from what my new doctors have told me, like how connected hormones are to emotions specifically. So, you know, once I stopped, like the doctors never checked in on me to see like, how are you doing? We haven't seen you in like a year. Because I mean, testosterone is a controlled substance. Like, to just be not checking up on someone who you've been like prescribing it to for over 4.5, almost 5 years, just kind of seems not responsible, in my opinion.
So you were getting hormones through endocrinologists or just hormone doctors or
Yeah.
gender therapists, maybe even?
Endocrinologist.
Okay. And
Yeah.
that wasn't integrated with the psychological component, so the psychological symptoms or what you were going through psychologically had nothing to do, or the endocrinologist didn't look into that or have any awareness, or were able to facilitate understanding that by having a degree and, you know.
Yeah, no, the endocrinologists were aware. I would tell them, but they never told me like that testosterone, one of the side effects can be rage, or can be, it's just, I don't even know how to describe it, heightened emotion almost.
Like anxiety?
I just,
or you're on a hair
yeah, but it
trigger?
was,
Or
yeah, kind of. It was as if I, one little thing would happen, and then I would just feel so out of control with my emotions that it would just always lead to, I want to disappear. I don't want to be here. And so then once that started happening, I then was put on psychiatric medications. And so then
while you're still on your
having,
hormones, on those hormones?
I'm on my hormone. Yeah. So
Okay.
at one point I was on my hormone blocker, injecting testosterone weekly, and I was on an antipsychotic, antineurotic, an antidepressant, an anti-anxiety, and a mood stabilizer.
So instead of subtracting one thing, they just keep on adding more? Oh, no.
Yeah, because no one was talking to each other, and I would tell them, but they would never really kind of take me seriously. I guess I don't really know, because I had to be the one to slowly take myself off of each thing one by one and advocate for myself, and really just take my own mental health healing into my own hands and do my own research.
Okay.
Because it was exhausting having therapists tell me that they couldn't work with me anymore because they didn't know what to do. It got to a point where people were like, we don't really know what to do, because I had a therapist tell me, your hormones are artificial, so I don't know how to respond to an artificial response to, what's
Life.
going on. Yeah. And so that was really scary, because I just felt like, oh, yeah, maybe I should have taken it a little bit more seriously, that none of this is FDA approved for what it's being prescribed for.
Okay, so Did you get a sense that the medical establishment, or in aggregate, all of your doctors, were locked into your trans identity, and so that could not be questioned? Is that where they're like, well,
Yeah.
we can't challenge you on that because that's who you are, that's your identity, and probably certain other circumstances. So.
Yeah, I mean, because I was very adamant, like, I am transgender. I
Okay.
know I am transgender. This is why. And I had a very typical, like, I have an unsupportive family. That's why I'm depressed, right? I think that
Okay.
was the line that they could draw. And then I did feel what somewhat, I guess, describe as gender euphoria in the first year or two of being on testosterone, because all of the changes that I had been waiting for years and years and years were finally happening. So it was really exciting at the time. Stopping my period was great.
Hmm.
Not having to worry about that for a while was awesome, but it wasn't healthy for me at all. And so I think I personally came to that realization. But when I was talking to therapists, for example, they would just tell me, oh, sometimes it just takes the medication like 6 to 8 weeks to see if it's actually doing anything. But the only thing it ever really did to me was just continue to numb my feelings. So at one point I just felt as if I was this emotionless zombie walking around, just going through the motions. And at one point I could barely get out of bed because I was so depressed and just hopeless, because I thought, here I am doing all of these things that I thought were going to make me happier because that's what I saw on YouTube, but it actually made me feel worse. And then the thought of having to come off of testosterone made me jealous of everyone else who I was seeing who could stay on it and seemed happier. So I thought, if they're all happy, then this isn't related to testosterone. But then I really had to disconnect from that. And yeah, lo and behold, a lot of it was connected to testosterone, and also the side effects from the psychiatric medications mixed in with the side effects from the hormone blocker and the testosterone.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's why I left China, because I was detoxing from all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have been off of all psychiatric medications for 2 years and testosterone for a little bit over a year. So
Okay.
this is the first time I actually have been feeling back in my body
Really?
over like a long time.
I can see how that gendered euphoria works. It's almost like your body's treated like a house that you get to now renovate, or it's like getting a new car, and
Yeah.
you're kind of sold this, or you're caught in this way of looking at remodeling yourself, your body, as kind of just this new wonderful thing to do. And also I'm struck by, while you're going through all these different things that you are explaining, you're still developing as a human being. So when you're 14,
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're 12, when you're 7, when you're 20, 22, you still don't even know who you are yet. And all this stuff is coming down that supposedly is a ladder or some sort of scaffolding to build yourself. But it seems like I'm projecting. I hope you can expand on this or tell
No,
me
you're
if I'm
not.
right or
You're not.
wrong. But it's like you're working on the outside, but you don't know what's on the inside. And it feels like there's nobody in your life that's having that conversation with you that you can bounce ideas off of. You have to eventually start doing that for yourself, or?
Yeah. I didn't feel I had a safe home life from a really young age. So I just always kept things internal and was always just talking to myself, basically, because
Okay.
I didn't feel safe to talk to anyone, because it would always get back to my parents, and then it would always just end up in a weird situation, or I would be, yeah, it
Were
just
you able
never
to
would end.
journal, or did this all have to
Yeah,
happen? Okay. So you did a
yeah.
lot
I,
of
I
writing.
started
Yeah.
journaling from a young age, and then my parents read my journals, so then I destroyed all of my journals, and then I saved, like the the oldest journal I have is from when I'm 17, but I had been journaling since I was like 8 years old, because I really just had a really tough family life. It was great on the outside, materialistically, but internally, behind closed doors, it was a completely different family than people knew on the outside. And it
Were you
gets
the only
nerve-wracking for me to
child?
talk about that. No, I was the oldest of three.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I have two sisters. And then my dad has six brothers, five brothers. He's the youngest of six, so I have a lot of cousins. So I have a pretty big family. But it was very clear that the men in my family was too aggressive, so I needed to play on a boys' team. That didn't exist at an all-girls school, so I just literally said, F this. And I remember I was so mad one time that I punched this girl in a basketball game, and I got kicked out. It was this big dramatic thing. I was 14 years old too. At the time, looking back on it, it was very like gaslighting. But we were in a gym, and I punched this girl. My dad was my coach, so he was really, I think, upset and embarrassed. And in front of like this whole crowd of people, called my grandpa down from the stands and kicked me out of the gym. And the referee also kicked me out of the gym. So then I got kicked out of the league. So then I just decided that I wasn't going to play basketball ever again, or soccer. And then just decided to dance. And so again, I went on YouTube and just taught myself how to dance in my bedroom. And then I would film myself dancing. I would lip sync, which then eventually turned into me dancing and lip syncing in a music video for Tegan and Sarah, highlighting transgender youth. So that's kind of where that went in that regards. I dabbled
Tegan
in
and Sarah,
acting.
are they happen to be the ones that did the Privilege rap a couple years ago?
Maybe, I don't know. I don't listen
Are
really to their
they
music.
Australian?
They're Canadian, like
Okay, never
lesbian
mind then.
sisters.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So you
kinda
got to
like
participate in
indie
the
pop.
YouTube darling circuit then.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, YouTube. I would spend a lot of time on YouTube, like watching, because I never felt safe to create. I always wanted to create, but I never felt safe to create because I knew that I had family like that would lurk online and try and like stalk me, and then it would get back to my family and would cause all this family drama. So for a long time I would create, but it was only just like, I'm 1 month on testosterone, or like I had top surgery, here are my results, or I'm intersex and transgender, here's why. It was just more educational videos. It was not like creating content for fun. So I'm starting to do that now because I feel more free, I feel more confident, and just happy and content now,
What caused you to not go all the way with the despair? What was the floor that said you can't go any further? You have to turn around.
Yeah. When I saw how painful it was to see people who really loved me witness me constantly trying to kill myself, I really started to feel guilty about it, and I really started to feel as if I was a nuisance to a lot of people, and I didn't want to be that anymore. And I really wanted to reconnect with this this kid who I knew I used to be, who just loved life and loved to laugh and loved to just be present with the moment and have fun. And so I just realized that I wasn't happy, and I wanted that happiness. And even though that I was still seeking that happiness, I knew it had to be attainable, because I had tried to take my life so many times and it wouldn't work. I think eventually it just turned into this spiritual thing of, I've tried to take my life so many times and it's not working. There has to be a reason why I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then were you able to connect with somebody who would listen to you, a psychologist or a therapist or a counselor or something like that? Or did you end up doing most of that work on your own for yourself?
Yeah, I ended up doing most of that work on my own. So my last semester of college was December 2017, and I was also put in the psych ward for like a suicide watch for the 4th time at that point. And so then when I got out, the typical routine is they want you to do an outpatient like rehab program, but I had already done 2 of those prior to this inpatient stay. And so I just kind of knew, like, this is what they're going to tell me, and they're going to want to put me on meds, but I know I don't want to be on meds because it's not helping me. So then I moved back to my hometown and I tried to find a therapist, but no one would really take me. And then I found this one woman, but she said she wouldn't work with me if I wasn't on medication. So I just felt really like I was wasting my time. All the energy I was putting into finding a therapist, I could just put into finding the answers myself through research. Because,
That's a wonderful way to put it.
Yeah, so I just started doing my own research and really started just implementing like different types of therapy practices for myself, and just slowly it started to work. So,
like,
I mean,
what,
I'm still
what kind of
doing it.
practice is?
So like affirmations, for example, like looking in the mirror at myself, and even in the beginning, I really I couldn't like look at myself and be like, I love you, but I would just say it, like, I love you, until eventually I would actually start, sounds weird, but I would actually start believing it and feeling it. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to feel these feelings that I used to feel in my body again. That means my emotional capacity is coming back to feel this range of emotion. I would also make sure to like check myself if I was going kind of down this like spiral, I guess you call it, like a mental spiral. I would have to like pause and count to 10, and then really kind of fact check it, like, okay, is this true, or am I just basing this off of like a cognitive distortion that's making me believe that it's true for myself? Just really slowly, like literally baby myself into how to have emotional regulation and be a functioning human with all of these complex emotions, but then also know how to handle it and function in society. You know, at one point when I started to regain the ability to cry, I was just crying and crying and crying and crying and crying and crying, because all of this emotion had just been stuck. Literally, it felt stuck. And it felt so good to just let it out eventually, that I would just stop, judging myself, and I would just hug myself and doing all these things that are so innately human that I feel as if we've disconnected from a little bit in society, just because I think we have more distractions now. And I also really dug deep into my family's like ancestral trauma, going back a few generations, to really understand this is why my parents are the way they are. This is why my grandparents raised them the way they are, and this is why my grandparents were raised the way that they were. And I was able to see like, oh yeah, this pattern runs deep in this side of the family because of XYZ thing that is happening, but that doesn't mean I'm responsible for that. I'm just responsible for healing the way that it affected me and not carrying it forward to the world and the interactions I have with other human beings.
So you're on this cocktail of all these different drugs. Which one do you, like the Jenga tower, which one you're like, I'm going to take this one out first?
Yeah. Which one? Let's see. So I was on two antidepressants. One was for sleep because one of the side effects was drowsiness. So they were just like, here, take this. It'll make you sleep. And also it'll help your depression. But it's mostly for sleep. So that one I took out immediately because I felt comfortable. Like, okay, I'm on another antidepressant. I can just take that out. Then it was the antipsychotic that I took out, and then the antineurotic, because I didn't believe that I was psychotic or neurotic. I felt that my symptoms were just coming from, like I was explaining, this artificial place, because it was these synthetic hormones with I had an implant for my puberty blocker, which was for, I think it's FDA approved for men with prostate cancer.
Oh, okay. So
I think.
Lupron, is that what it is or something?
No, it's called Vantis.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Yeah, it's a Vantis implant. Like I have scars right here.
How long do they last? Or do you have to, did you like do something grotesque and dig it out one night in some sort of weird movie moment?
Oh, no, but I mean,
Okay,
I have a photo of it. I had it like I would have to go in once a year and have it surgically removed, because they had to they would do local anesthesia and then cut it open and then pull it out and then put it back in.
Refill.
Or put a new one. Yeah, refill me. And
were you expected to go on that indefinitely?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were very much pushing me towards that direction indirectly. They can't just flat out say, this is what you have to do. But with my endocrinologist, because she was the one that I worked with the most, she made it very clear that she felt that it would be easier for me if I didn't have my ovaries. So I actually had an appointment to have a hysterectomy, and I don't know why, something in me just said, I don't want to do this. So I didn't do it.
Okay.
And I'm really thankful that I didn't do it.
With the testosterone, I know that certain females can undergo some pretty dramatic reactions with their the whole womb system.
Yeah.
Were you, and I'm sorry, this is very personal, I'm just wondering.
No, it's fine.
Was it just like period stop? Was that like the kind of like the end of the road for how that affected that part of you?
Yeah, for the most part. It just, my period stopped, and I would say vaginal dryness, but besides that, it was never
atrophy can happen.
Yeah,
I know. Okay.
I didn't have atrophy, but I think I was going towards that because when I saw another doctor in the future, she had told me that my ovaries had shrunk. She said that they were too small for someone my age. So that freaked me out. And when I was starting to date my partner, he and I wanted to try doing some sort of birth control, but I didn't want to do the hormonal one. So I got the copper IUD, and then I had a full-on period while taking a full dose of testosterone. So then that also really freaked me out. So then I got that taken out, and then that's when I started to be like, okay, I'm coming off of this. This is just not feeling healthy. I don't feel healthy. My hair was falling off of my head so fast. And like, if I bent down like this, you could see like directly to my scalp. And like my hairline was like receding too. And if I pull like my hair back, like I have all of this growth like coming back in, but my hairline used to be like pretty,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
like male. But it's like all of this is brand new, so it's all coming forward and like filling back in again. And the hairs too, like the minute I stopped testosterone, they started to come back in quicker, like gradually. But yeah, they started to come back in quicker, and they started to, thicken and kind of have that like, just what do you call it, softness back. Like testosterone really like dried out my hair and made it really brittle, like really, really brittle. So I think I also I didn't want to go bald because I knew that I was like causing it to myself, right? Like I was watching all these videos of people like accepting themselves going bald because it's just a part of their genes, but I was like, that's not me. I'm doing this to myself. I can easily stop this. But then I would think about, I don't want my female body back. So it was this like tug of war. But then I realized, okay, my moods and all of this stuff is also because of the testosterone. And at the time, I was hopeful that it wasn't, but I think intuitively I knew it was. And now being off of it, I can confirm, like, yeah, I don't have any of the mental health issues that I had while I was on testosterone. So it really pinpointed it to me of like, yeah, there's a big factor playing into all of the mess of the medicalization that I was experiencing.
How did, what were some steps that you took that allowed you to be accepting of your body as it was given to you and as it is now?
Yeah, I would say just allowing myself first to just be comfortable with being naked. I really had a hard time with that prior, just because I would look at myself as if I was broken, and I had to really like reclaim that for me. And then I just would go to the store and I would just buy clothing that fit my body, but that I also felt comfortable in. So it was buying, for example, like instead of men's underwear, buying women's underwear. And I would just tell myself like, this doesn't, because at the time I was still in the kind of like, I am trans, like I am a male, but I was able to get myself to be like, this doesn't make me a female. This is just clothing and I'm putting it on my body. And then eventually it allowed me to just like radically accept myself and be like, yeah, and this is just my body and I am a human being and we're all diverse in shape and structure. And in preaching to other people, like, just be who you are, accept yourself as you are unconditionally, I needed to also do that. And I realized that that was really, important, and needed to also incorporate stopping testosterone for myself.
And did, so the trans identity, it's like the rhetoric, I don't mean to, in this conversation to go critical about it, but the rhetoric is that trans man is a man. You are a man, but you're still aware that you're a trans man. So it's like that rhetoric is, I guess it's pointed outward to change the rules of society or to advance some sort of cause. But if you're really trying to internalize that, aren't you setting yourself up for cognitive dissonance? Like there's this break in your brain that you have to, like with your identity, and then investing so much of who you are into this identity that you're producing and performing at the same time. It seems like a lot of stress, but it seems unstable too. in
It
a
was
way.
stressful for me. I mean, like, again, I can't speak for other people who take on this label, and so I have to be aware of that. I have to be aware that I am only speaking for myself. I personally came to the conclusion that I was transgender because of XYZ, and when I talk to other people, it's different for them. But for me, I always saw myself as baseline female, right? Because also at the time, the community that I was existing in was solely online, and I had no friends outside of the internet for the first 4 years that I was identifying as transgender that also identified as transgender. It wasn't until I went to college. So in that time, it was just this personal identity that I was using, this label to kind of tell people, like, yes, I'm a female, but female to male. Like, I am a male because I feel like a male. And this feeling is supported by everyone is calling me he, him, his pronouns when they meet me in person, and I haven't even been put on testosterone. I'm just in my physical body without HRT. And so, but I'm at this all girls school, and I don't feel comfortable being seen as a girl, and no one sees me as a girl. Yet I know that I have the biology of one because that's what I've been told. But I'm also 14 years old, so I'm still getting a grasp of who I am. So, I personally, I always saw myself as I am female, but I transitioned to male. And so, but I've seen a lot of people change that. I do see a lot of people now say I've always been male, and I can see why that feels comfortable for them. But me personally, it just doesn't make sense, because at one point in my life, I too was also seeing myself as a female. And socialized that way, and out of all female schools. So, yeah.
So, where do you put the energy that you were putting into your trans identity? Where does that go now? It seems like you invested a lot in mental health and talking yourself up. As you're getting better, freer, where are you putting your attention now?
I've been learning languages. I think now that I realize that when I hyper focus on something, I can get a really good result out of it. Imagine that. So I took that hyper focused lensing and put it towards languages, and
is that rather easy for you? I'm sure it's a lot of work, but does your
It is a lot of
mind...
work.
Yeah.
But I've noticed I can pick up languages pretty easily, effortlessly, and it's fun for me too. I know for some people, if you say learn a second language, they cringe, but I love it. It's a hobby of mine. So for me, one of my biggest goals right now is to be able to complete my master's and write my thesis in Mandarin. That would be the ultimate accomplishment for my Mandarin study goals that I have. And then I also started to pick up Spanish over this last year because my partner's from Mexico. So a lot of my family now only speaks Spanish. So I wanted to, get to know them more intimately. So I just started to pick it up, and now I can speak Spanish. So, so I want to keep going with that and seeing where it takes me, because I was really passionate about learning languages while going through all of this, but I couldn't devote a lot of time to it because it was so much, it was taking so much time to get through a panic attack or try and live, basically.
What would you like your master's thesis to be about?
I don't know yet.
Okay. But you're studying
I'm
international
looking
business, so there's something in that domain.
international studies.
Studies. Oh, studies. Okay, so
Yeah, yeah.
whether it's like culture or the meeting of cultures or.
Yeah, so it'll cover culture, law, economics, and also language, right? It's a dual degree, so I'll be getting a master's from a Chinese university and then also an American university.
Wow.
And so with that, I'll be able to have access to obviously knowing how to potentially work in either the Chinese job market or the American job market or another international market, either in Mexico, for example, because you know I've talked with my partner about potentially moving to Mexico, so kind of open right now just to kind of see what interests me at the time. I also don't know if I'll even be able to do this program because of COVID, so I may just continue to study on my own and see what happens from there. I just would love to inspire people to learn languages and connect with other people who just enjoy doing that because it's fun for me, and I also want to do more content creating. I started doing TikTok just
Oh,
because
dancing?
just because I want to do dancing, yeah, but language learning and sharing different like spirituality stuff. I want to talk about mental health. I actually created a series where I'm going to read a journal entry from when I was younger and use that to kind of promote my YouTube, where I'm going to talk more long form content about my transition, but I also want to promote it on TikTok too, just knowing
Yeah.
that I can reach more people, because I'm really not trying to say like, oh, no one is transgender or no one should do this, but I just want people to know that it's more complex than just attaining gender euphoria or making a decision that you can easily turn back from, because I had that mindset, that I could just stop taking testosterone, everything would be fine, and that wasn't the case.
What are your feelings or opinions of the medical industry and its treatment of you, and then its treatment larger scale of the transgender issue?
Yeah. It's been interesting to observe how the medical industry's changed around this subject, because when I came out as transgender, HRT and surgeries still weren't covered. So seeing that change, I've seen a change in the way that people are treated. For me, I had to go through a little bit of therapy to get a letter of recommendation for hormone replacement therapy, and I also had to do that for my top surgery. But as I got a little bit older, and this is only in the span of, I started testosterone in 2015, so it's like what, 6 years or something,
Yeah.
6 years ago. In that span, I've seen so many people just be able to get hormones very easily. And I've seen this kind of narrative breakdown of, oh, it's really hard to get hormones. Now it's seemingly becoming easier and easier. And with that, I think there are a lot more people who are potentially going to take it who don't want to, or could have side effects from it and not, have a similar situation to me, and then not know what to do because there's no literature or really research about this. And so for a while I didn't also want to talk about it because I was scared of having my story be used as a political piece, and also, the gatekeeping issue of, yes, there are a lot of people who say this helps them, these therapies help them, and they haven't had side effects from what I'm aware of, and I wouldn't want to take that away from someone either, but I also want people to be safe. I want, if this is going to continue to grow, I want people to also be taken seriously for side effects that they may have, because I don't feel as if I was taken seriously. I felt as if I was just being kind of listened to, and they were only hearing like depression. Okay, take your antidepressant pill. Oh, you have anxiety, just take this. Oh, you're having a side effect, let's just change the medication. Like, it's a different brand, but it's still an antidepressant. I've just it's complicated how I feel about this, because I feel as if I didn't have the desire to change myself, I don't think I would have, and I don't think the medical industry was going to help me, if that makes sense. Because I don't think they knew how. Coming off of testosterone,
okay,
coming off of all my psychiatric medications, I just don't think any of my doctors knew how or what was going on.
We are in a very interesting period in history where stories like yours are not being taken seriously by the medical establishment. The medical establishment, from what I've heard and speaking with doctors and practitioners of a variety of sorts, shuts down any sort of counter-narrative to acceptance and affirmation right now, meaning that there are going to be a lot of people falling through the cracks, and that there's going to be a lag in stories such as yours. And I mean, the anecdotes that you're sharing, that I'm collecting, adding up into data is going to take a while. And in that time, there's going to be heaps more of very similar stories. And therefore, it's incredibly important for you to just share yours, whether or not it is used as a political pawn, but it will reach the right people before, during, and after they go through a similar journey, and being able to assess what they're actually feeling. It seems like you have a sense of yourself in the world now. It seems like if you look into the future, is this true? I should phrase this stuff more as a question. Do you see yourself in the future, and how do you see yourself in the world?
I think I have a vague idea of what I'm going to be doing. I really love storytelling, and I want to tell my story, so I really do see myself doing some sort of media videography, speaking, whether it's a podcast or a documentary or something, just because I love the artistic side of all of that. And I also see myself really wanting to work in just bridging human understanding between individuals and dissolving the delusion between duality between everyone. Because, you know, at the end of the day, we all have similar basic needs, and it just becomes convoluted with all of these labels and identities that we're putting onto each other to separate ourselves, to, from my perspective, to feel different, but we're not that different at the end of the day. So I want to just keep, I guess, just sharing that, and whatever form that manifests into, I just hope that I'm enjoying it and making a living from doing something that I love doing and that I'm passionate about. So I'm still searching for what that is, but I know, for example, languages, I love that. So maybe something with that, or maybe something international if something happens with my schooling. So I don't know, maybe like acting I'd love to do. Voice acting sounds really fun. Like, there's just a lot of different things that I'm open to.
Yeah, thanks for joining me and adding your voice to my little queue. And I'll link links to your TikTok and your YouTube so you can get more viewers, and people can hook up with you. Do you have a schedule with the YouTubes that you're doing roughly?
So far, it's just been one video a month.
Okay.
I'm trying to do more. I just have been.
You can do one every other day like me if you really want.
I know you're very ambitious. I'm inspired by your channel just because I love the diversity of voices and guests that you have on. It's just more. It feels more organic, and that's how I remember YouTube being back in the day. So I really appreciate that, and just you've interviewed so many people specifically about gender and sexuality and transition. I've learned a lot just through your other participants, and I also learned a lot through your Evergreen video series.
Like, that's a very negative lesson, unless that you're studying their tactics and you want to implement them in China or something.
Well, it was just very validating because, I mean, my college experience was not to the extent of Evergreen, but it had similar undertones. So it was just interesting to see what was happening also while I was in school. And yeah, just because I read The Coddling of the American Mind, and so it talked about Evergreen, and then I remembered you also talking about Evergreen, and then I was like, oh, this is a little bit larger scale of an issue, like nationally, than I realized.
Yeah, so, if last summer showed us anything, it's that Evergreen can scale.
Yeah. Yeah, so thank you for your channel. It's been, when I was not using social media, I would log on to YouTube though to like keep up with what you were putting out. Just it was very valuable for me to hear other Detrans stories specifically, but also different perspectives within the LGBT community, and also the medical professionals specifically was really helpful because it felt like I was getting access to stuff that I could have benefited from hearing, but wasn't hearing from the doctors that I was interacting with. So thank you.
Thank you. And you're welcome. I'm gonna end the recording now. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
That's a really nice goodbye. You should do voice work. Congratulations for reaching the end of the discussion. If you enjoyed it, do be sure to leave a review or a comment or a thumbs up or whatever you need to do to show that glorious algorithm that this is some good stuff. And do be sure to go and check that back catalog, as it is brimming full of fantastic conversations. Links to provide monetary support are down there in the description as well. Have a good night.